Howdy, Illuminator. Today we are going to be talking about priorities. Now, most people do this backwards. So we're going to learn how to do it in a way that is much more effective so that you're actually able to give time, attention, and energy to your priorities. Now, I'm going to make a note right off here at the beginning. If you have more than 3 priorities, those aren't priorities, right? By definition, it means we are prioritizing it above something else. If we have countless priorities, those can't be prioritized, right? So you're going to have to get really specific with this lesson so that you actually are moving in the direction you want to go, being the person you want to be, living the life you want to live. Now, there might be more than 3 priorities spread out over different areas, right? You might have a job or a business and you have priorities while you're there. You might have a hobbies and those you prioritize differently. So that's true. And these principles can be used in all of those areas. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about with priorities is the thing you're going to choose over everything else. So we're going to be talking in a general sense about your priorities as an integrated being. Okay. And then you can use this in other areas as well. So you might be thinking, oh, well, how do I do? Because, I have to have this deadline with my boss. I have to prioritize that. And yet that, I wouldn't say that's my top priority, but it is over here. That's okay. So we'll talk on that a little bit. But if you have more than 3, you don't have priorities. So let's just start there. Now let's reverse. Okay. Most people, when they're asked about their priorities or setting priorities, they decide what is their priority, right? And oftentimes people find that they are not putting their time, energy, and resources into their priorities, even though they're claiming that those are their priorities. And perhaps more honestly, those are what we want to be our priorities, but we're not actually investing our resources in them, right? So what you're going to be doing this week instead is actually finding out where your priorities are right now. Now, do not have judgment around this. This is all information. It's data. If you're doing something, all we're doing is bringing awareness to it. Do not change your behavior this week. Do not alter anything you've been doing. You won't get accurate information that way. You can't fuck this up, right? However you've been doing it, we need to know that information. If you switch it up because now you have some attention brought on it, this is not useful to you. Okay. So I know this stuff's hard and a lot of us want to be like the A student and we want to do it right. The way to do this right is to just keep going how you have been in life. No alterations. No, well, I want it to be this. No, do everything exactly as you have been. And you're going to be tracking it. Now, this is kind of tedious. It's kind of annoying, at least for me. Maybe some people like this, but you need to actually be logging, create a written log or use an app. There are a lot of apps for tracking. Create a log, digital or on paper, of how you're spending your time. And I mean everything. And believe me, this is annoying. I get it, but you're only going to do it for a short time and it is going to be life-changing. So stick with it. Okay. You will be tracking absolutely everything you're doing: sleeping, showering, exercise, your work, your self-mastery work, your family time, your spiritual practices, all of it. You don't, yes to human maintenance, such as cooking and things like that. You don't have to log your bathroom breaks, okay? Because you're going to have to take those no matter what, right? And yeah, so you don't have to log that stuff, but sleeping and everything else, be logging it. What we're going to do with that log at the end of the week, you're going to add up all of your time in the different categories. So cooking, grocery shopping, running errands, whatever, those might just become one category: human maintenance, right? Sleeping, human maintenance. You are going to, if it's work related, that's going to be work, right? If it's recovery, self-mastery related, put that all together in one category. So you're going to be tracking things individually and then categorizing them in broader terms, if that makes sense to you. There might be some that don't fit in any. Then add up all of your time that has gone into those areas. And just a note, we're doing sleep as an important part of this, but I do realize that that can add a big chunk of hours. So if you are getting sufficient sleep, then we're just going to have that as information, and you're not going to use that, because if you're getting, 7 or 8 hours a night, that's going to look like your priority. So we're not going to use it for that sense. However, if you're getting 2 hours a night, that is something to note, because you can't do self-mastery or healing without sufficient sleep, because the brain actually does the cataloging and the healing while we're sleeping, right? So just a note on that, because that can throw some people off on their end of week number. When you have all of your data unjudged, unaltered, you're just looking at numbers on a paper at this point, you're going to find where your priorities lie. So you might say, as many people do, my recovery is my top priority. And then you find you're only spending 3 hours on it a week. Or my self-mastery is the most important thing to me, but you're doing one lesson and a little bit of homework, right? And you're not carrying your practices into your day. You might say, my family is my top priority. Spending quality time with my family is my top priority. However, you're working overtime at your job, right? So do not judge, do not alter. You're going to judge and you're going to alter. Don't do that. I know you're going to be like, oh, well, a little bit here and there. No, none. It's just not useful to you. It's not because it's mean and it's going to make you feel bad, though that's part of it too. And go back to the most important teammate lesson if you need to, but just look at this as data for now. When you have it and you see where your hours are going, you see where you're investing your time, those are currently your priorities. Maybe they're in alignment with what you want. Maybe they're not. Maybe you're finding you're spending a lot of time watching TV. You're on screens, you're on social media, you're spending 15 hours there a week and very little time on hiking or getting outside. And you like to say like, oh, being connected and being physically healthy is a top priority, but you're spending 15 hours on screens for socializing and or numbing out. Let's be real. Most of us go on screens and we're numbing out. Anyway, you're going to have that information. Now, if it's in alignment, great. You can continue on and you can even make tweaks to how you're spending that time. You may find, okay, my priorities are on point. Those are where I am spending that quality time with family. I am focusing on my self-mastery. My spiritual practices are on point. And you notice, oh, but there's a lot of fat that could actually be trimmed off here. What if I'm meal prepped? I don't need to be spending that much time doing this or that, right? So you can make adjustments if you're already close. Then we're just tweaking. If it's far off, and I'll be honest, most people, they find their priorities where they are actually putting their resources right now are not where they're saying their priorities are, or they're not where they want their priorities to be, right? This is paramount information for you if that is the case. You're going to be able to now make adjustments. And a lot of this is investigative, where you're going to be practicing to find the things that work for you now. You don't have to commit to it forever, right? If you find that you keep saying, I work on myself all the time, my self-mastery is really important to me, and yet you're spending all your time on screens, let's say doing Netflix or whatnot, then you're going to be able to take some of those hours and move them into the other category where you want them to be. So we are tracking where we're putting our resources, and we are now gaining the tools based on that accurate information that was not judged and not altered. We now know where we can make adjustments so that we are in alignment with who we want to be and the life we want to live. Once you have the information, you now have agency to be intentional with your priorities, and priorities get our resources. Most importantly, time. Time is our most valuable resource, in my opinion, and where we're putting it really shows our priorities. So that's what we're doing with this lesson. We're finding out where our priorities lie right now, and then we are having the power to make alterations where needed. if you're struggling to know where you want your priorities, then I invite you to think about if you came up against a certain situation. Let's say you're requested to work overtime at work. It's not mandatory, but they'd like you to. And that means losing time with your family. Maybe you've got kiddos and it means not going to their events, not being home to help with homework and all of that. That's when it's really important to know where your priorities lie. Because if your priority is quality time with your family, and to each their own, I'm not saying one is better than the other, to each their own. But if your priority is quality time with your family, then you know the answer to your boss is no, I can't do that. It completely removes the gray areas. We might say, well, if I put in more time with work, I'll make more money and that'll help care for my family. So do you see how that's different? You can't just say family is your priority because that's very vague. So is it quality time with your family? Is it being present with your family? Is it being there to actually be a role model and a leader in your family? Or is it providing for your family? Is it a financial component for your family? Is it stability? Those are very different, right? Like we just said, because if you just say family, you could say, well, if I earn more money, that will help my family. So I'm going to say yes to the overtime. And that can be your priority. None of these are good or bad or better or worse or whatever. They're just whatever it is for you. That's your priority. So get really clear. So maybe maybe you're saying, oh, self-mastery is my top priority. And you are asked to go on a kayaking trip. I don't know. I want to go. Can someone invite me? I want to go. But no, like, so you might say, you might look at that as, well, I have sessions this week. I got to get caught up on my work, my lessons, my assignments. I'm reading this book that's really perfect. And I'm in a space where I'm just like in the zone and I really got to be focusing on that self-mastery. So then the answer to the kayaking trip would be, no, I can't make it, please invite me next time. Or vice versa. You're like, oh, I got to have fun. I got to relax. That's part of my self-mastery. So that's actually a yes to that, right? But you'll have actual agency to be making your choices. You're not just making them blindly anymore. When we can get really clear on our priorities, it makes life so much easier. And like I said, those can shift. Maybe you're in a season where being at work is really important. Maybe you're up for a promotion. Maybe you run your own company and you've just got to be doing that right now. And that has to be your priority right now. But in your mind, you're like, but that's not my top priority forever. That's okay. We're always sticking with the present because it's all we have access to. You can't go and do your priority for the future today. So don't worry about it. Unless you are in a situation where you're like, okay, for the next 6 months, I've just got to really be a force in my business to get this thing built, get it grown, whatever. Then you're going to be tracking that because we can get stuck in it, right? Because that becomes homeostasis. So this week is all about getting information so that you can use that information to help create your boldly satisfying life. So you are going to be tracking your time in every area. I'm not going to put out field work for this one because I don't want to assume anyone's day to day. I don't know what everyone's life looks like, right? A single mom's life looks very different than a couple who has no kids, right? Or, I don't know. We all have very different lives, and I don't enjoy or plan to play into the heteronormative box life that we're supposed to be living, but most of us don't, right? So you're going to create your own log, whether that's on paper or digital, and make sure you're doing it for the entire week, right? If you have a life that's not consistent, then do it as long as you need to in order to get sufficient data for you to work off of. So you're going to be tracking it for a week in every area. And yes, it's going to get annoying. Yes, it's going to be tiring. You're not going to want to do it. Do your best and do it as you go along. Do not wait till the end of the day and just track everything because you're going to forget stuff. You're going to leave it out. And you want to be as accurate as possible. The more accurate you are, the more accurate your data is, the more information you have, and then you actually can change it. If you're guesstimating, oh, I think I spent about this much time on this and this, you don't actually know, that's not helpful. right? So you accurately track it for as long as you need to get a solid idea of what your time is looking like. Put the things that match up into larger categories at the end of your time. Add up all of the time spent for each of those, and that will give you an idea of what your priorities are at this time. If it's in alignment, great. You are right on the money. You're good to go. And now you know that you are in alignment. Or there might be things you can tweak to make it even better. And that's great. For most people, we find out that our resources are actually not going to our priorities. And now you have a clear view of that and can make alterations as needed. I'm going to say this one more time. I know it's probably annoying by now. Do not alter your placement of your resources as you're tracking. Do you understand how that's not going to be helpful to you? You might feel better because you're like, oh, see, it does match, but it's not true. It's not accurate. That's not helpful. And I know since you're on the path of self-mastery, you don't want to look good. You want to be living your best life, right? You want to be your best version of yourself, and you need to be in reality to do that. So don't alter your behavior. Don't judge it. If it's out of alignment, you've been out of alignment. Big deal. Now you can switch it up however you want. So don't judge it, don't change it. We're data gathering, you're being an investigator this week, and then you're able to decide where you want to move things around so that you can be in better alignment. I want to encourage you, once you have done that, once you have your resources going where you want them, make sure you're still being mindful. You don't have to keep tracking everything you do, though you're welcome to, but just be mindful that your resources are continuing to go to your chosen priorities, right? We might say, fun is a priority for me. Fun's got to be a top priority, or travel, or something like that. And yet we kind of snuck back over to the working too much for our what's good for us, right? And we might have just fallen into that. So just be mindful. Get the information, make any shifts, tweaks, or huge jumps that you need to align your priorities, and then continue to be intentional with them and mindful as you move on. That's how we co-create our life, by having an understanding, having the awareness of what is going on, making adjustments as we go, as needed, and then staying intentional and mindful with that this is a path, right? Self-mastery is a path. We walk it our whole lives, and we're going to be shifting and growing the whole time. So this is something you can do often. And you can take these principles into every area of your life, right? You might say quality time with family is top priority, but you're noticing you're with your family, but you're all on separate devices in the same room. Oh, is that quality to you? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You decide, right? So then you can even shift in little ways within your categories as well. This is not most people's favorite lesson. It's not mine. I'll tell you, I'll be honest. I don't like that. I don't like doing this. I don't like this work. I'd like to be in flow and just like letting things happen. But then I'm leaving my happiness, my satisfaction, and my destiny just up to whatever, right? Fingers crossed. And that doesn't usually lead to the life I want. That's just me passively accepting whatever life I happen to be living, which isn't really why I'm here. And I'm guessing that's not why you are here either. You have your mission, should you choose to accept it, as annoying as this one might be for some of us. It is unbelievably powerful. Those little things and where you put your resources is what makes up your life, right? So I can't stress how important this is, to make sure your resources are going where you actually want them to get that life that you want. And you can go back and revisit the lesson on going beyond motivation, right? On where we're looking at who we want to be and the life we want to live. You can revisit that and check that out, compare that with your priorities. You can also go into the designing your life lesson and again, just check it out. Hey, is this going towards this? Is this actually working towards this? Oh yeah, no, I can do this and this. And oh yeah, I really want that to be part of my day. And here's an hour that I'm spending where I don't need it and I can put it towards that, right? So use all of these together. They're meant to build on one another so that you have the tools you need to be the person you want to be, living the life you want to live. That's what it's all about. We'll see you next time.